earlier than this dog, but you can see they look a little bit alike, not totally. But now you've got, and you need to come around where I am. Now you've got this incredible dog, which probably, because it's pretty big, this could have been in a household shrine, but my guess is this comes from a temple. But we don't know, okay? The bottom line is we don't know. Now this is made out of, they call it terracotta. It's not terracotta. That's a misunderstanding. It's ceramic. Terracotta is a very, very specialized kind of ceramic, but when they talk about antiquities, they usually call everything terracotta. It would be more accurate to call it clay, okay? Clay or ceramic, because we don't know what kind of clay this is. We could probably find out, but we don't know.
Okay.
And we don't want to analyze it, but we could analyze it. So what's interesting is this dog is perhaps barking. You can see his teeth in front right here at the top. You can see these markings on his face, and then of course the markings, the loose jowl. He's got a jowl. Not too many dogs have jowls, but this is your molossus, okay? And then he's got this thing, which you pointed out to me. I didn't even know this. They've all got this thing around their neck with a cord. So they held the cord. It was like a leash, but not a long leash like we have. It was a very short leash. So these dogs were very powerful, and I'm sure that they escaped. They would get wild. They'd break away because he couldn't hold on.
Sure.
Unless he was very, very strong, okay? And they could probably pull, if it was a big dog, they could probably pull a man along. Now, what's really interesting about this dog is up here. He has this thing, which we call a Calcite Cross. You need to come and shoot it from here, from the back. And you can see the Calcite Cross. Now, the calcites are much later. But the cross existed before, but it became a Calcite Cross. And of course, this is interesting because the cross is, of course, something that's very important to Christianity. So this has that value to it. And so this is a Calcite Cross. And really, almost what it looks like is a crossroads. Two different things. They don't really come together. You see, it's 4 separate pieces. They're all sort of L-shaped. And some are upside down, some are backwards, some are right side up. So that's the Calcite Cross right there. And that's really, I think these dogs I think the other one has it too, but I don't know. And here you can see the face of the dog, the eyes, which are quite nicely delineated. Yeah, it's got a nice face.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's, and this dog is almost undoubtedly a representation of the goddess Gula. And I don't know if it has to be a female dog, because Gula is obviously female, but I don't know if it has to. I don't know enough to answer. This dog is from approximately sometime between 2000 and 1600 BC. So that is usually, 1800 BC is usually called the Old Babylonian period because of this guy named Hammurabi, who made Babylon the most important. He made it a major, major city, the most important city in Mesopotamia, because it dominated all the other cities, or most of the other cities. And by the way, that only lasted about 50 years after he died. After he died, it totally fell apart. His children were not able to keep that going. So it's a very short-lived empire, but it took the name, even though they kept the Babylonian, they call the Old Babylonian period usually from around 1800 and something to around 1600. But then lots of times they have a period before that called the Isin Larsa period, which is from 2000 to 1800, and they sometimes lump that in and also call that the Old Babylonian Empire. The Old Babylonian period, not empire. The empire is much shorter. So there was this guy Hammurabi who was a moderate king, and then he figured out how to cheat and trick people and even win battles against people, and he was able to take over and become sort of the overlord of much of what we call Mesopotamia. So when you have Mesopotamia, you probably know that Mesopotamia means, Mesopotamia means between the 2 rivers. That's where the word comes from. And the 2 rivers are the Tigris and the Euphrates. So you have, in the north, you have the Tigris, and they both come together, and they empty into the Persian Gulf, which is, of course, a very important and critical area that we have today for oil, for shipping, for all kinds of things. So you have these two. In the very south, we have this thing that later became called the Marsh Arabs because it's very marshy. And this is where the Sumerians were. This is where the Sumerian cities were. They were in the south. Then in the middle, you have this other area, which is where Babylon was, and a number of other cities. And this is central Mesopotamia. So the Babylonian Empire was centralized, focused, more north of where the Sumerians were. And the original people that were from that area were called Akkadians. But when Babylon became dominant, then it became Babylon or Babylonia, okay? So, but the Sumerians are much older and they speak a different language. And they were both of these writing systems, which we call cuneiform, were adapted to these different languages. In other words, Babylonian, Akkadian, and many, many other languages. Ugaritic, which is really like Northwest Semitic. So there's like three branches of the Semitic language. There's E-Semitic, which is Aramaic, which is the language, one of the versions of that language is the language that was spoken by the person that we call Jesus.